if you're only doing a little water change, then there's not really much, it's not dangerous at all. If you're going to do a bigger water change, it's better to prepare the water first. So you make up a bucket of water, then you're going to add some water ager, and then depending on what your GH and KH levels are, will depend on how much KH or salt you add to the water, because it's important we end up with stable GH and KH levels over time. And then we're just going to pour the water back in again. In general, a quarter water change is no problem at all. A half water change starts getting risky. More than a half can be risky depending on the temperature of your environment and depending on what your tap water's like. So the other thing is, how do we get the water out? So it's much better to use a gravel cleaner. So a gravel cleaner is basically a thick tube connected to a thin tube, so you can stick the thick tube into the gravel. The gravel will come up and spin around. All the crap will come out of the gravel and the gravel will fall down clean. Because we never really want to take the gravel out of the tank once it's in there. But we do want to regularly spring clean the tank. And what a spring clean would be is grab a bucket, pull all your decorations out, throw them in the bucket, get your gravel cleaner, clean all under the rocks and stuff. Because what we don't want is lots of crap building up under the rock and you not touching that crap for a long, long time. Because what can happen is you can start forming what's called anoxic bacteria underneath the rocks where the oxygen can't get in because of all the sediment. And then if you release all that sediment all of a sudden, you can put hydrogen sulfide in the water, which can actually kill your fish. It's quite rare, but it can actually happen. So it's really important that you just give the tank a spring clean every now and then, probably a couple of times a year minimum, if not more. So now this fish is pregnant. So as it gets bigger and as it produces more babies, if you have something floating on the tank that the babies can get in, then the babies may survive, because if a fish can fit another fish in its mouth, it tends to eat it. So while your fish are small, if these fish breed, probably the babies are going to live. This one is obviously Peter's wife, because this is only a baby fish and it's already pregnant. Don't trust your uncle. But you definitely don't trust an uncle called Peter. So if your fish start getting bigger and their mouth is big enough to eat the baby fish, then often your baby fish will get eaten. But some fish are egg layers, like the neons, and some fish are live birth, like the mollies. And the funny thing about molly is the molly can actually be pregnant and then can have babies and then re-impregnate herself and have babies again. So they're very prolific little fish. But quite often they breed and no one ever knows they breed because they just end up becoming live food. Yum. So the GH, or general hardness, is also a titration test, which means you count the drops. Now this started out yellow and we counted the drops until it went green, and therefore this is 9 drops, which means 9 DKH, 9 degrees of GH. So in this aquarium, 8 to 12 is something I'd be very happy with. So right now I'm very happy with the GH. And then if the GH was too high, you do a water change without adding GH salts. And then if the GH is too low, you add GH salts. So this molly here is a female. And the way you can tell it's a female is if it's got an anal fin at the bottom. If it was a male, it's got a little spiky dingly thing. And so the males have a little dingle and the females have a fin. So various fish can be sexed. Neons are not quite as easy. The females tend to be fatter, but the dimorphism is minimal. Whereas something like a molly is very easy just by looking at its fin underneath. And most fish start off female and then over time they start to show male characteristics. Now if your glass is getting dirty, the first thing you can do is reduce the amount of light. The second thing you can do is add catfish, like bristlenose catfish. And then the third thing you can do is just get a little magnet cleaner. And they're very simple, and you go boom, boom, boom. You can even go around the corners like this. And this is a very easy way of keeping the glass nice and clean if you do it regularly. But you want to make sure you never get gravel caught in between the magnet cleaner, otherwise you can scratch your glass. So it's quite common when you add new fish that they fight to sort their dominance out. Now I've definitely seen a lot less fighting in the neons now. So they might have sorted out who the top G is. And the other thing with fish is how well the fish get along is often governed by who the dominant fish is. So in this tank, if we put a little red-tailed shark or something like that, then it's very likely to be the dominant fish. Now, if the dominant fish is giving everyone a little bit of a chase but not hurting anyone, then it's a good dominant fish. On the other hand, if you get a dominant fish that just picks on a certain fish, then it might eventually kill that fish, and then it will usually pick another fish and then slowly break that one down until it kills it too. So we don't want Adolf Hitler as our dominant fish. So if you see a fish that's just picking on a certain fish until that fish gets worn down and dies, then you need to either get rid of Adolf, or you need to put a fish in that's going to dominate Adolf. Because how well your fish get along is number one governed by how many fish you've got. More fish you have, the better they tend to get along. And also who the dominant fish is. If you have a good dominant fish, then your fish all should get along well. And it's very common to see the dominant fish break up fights. So if the boss is patrolling the tank and he sees two fish fighting, he'll often go and break it up because he likes the hierarchy the way it is. So it's important to keep an eye on who the boss fish is, because you can't control your fish, but you do have control over them. So if you notice that they're fighting, then make a little video of what they're doing and bring the video down to see us with the water sample, and then we'll guide you on what to do next. So these neons have really sorted themselves out now. So that little brawl that was going on at the start seems to have really succumbed. Now the other thing is with fish, if one fish chases the other fish and the other fish just gets on with its day straight away, then that's not really a big problem. Whereas on the other hand, if your fish are fighting and then one fish goes and hides and breathes heavily for a while, then that means the fish is stressing. And what happens with stress is if fish are stressed, just like humans or any other animal, then eventually they die. Because what happens is when they're stressed, all of their energy goes into their respiration system, their fight or flight system, their white muscle cells, and it comes out of their immune system. So a stressed fish is very alert, but can get sick very easily. So it's important that the fish have good balanced energy. And if you see the fish fighting and you see the fish stressed, you need to do something about it. Otherwise, you've got to be prepared to lose them. And that goes for your parents. Try not to stress your parents, or they might start breathing heavy and get a low immune system and die. And then who's going to pay for you if your parents are dead? Have you thought about that?
Majestic shirts.
Pretty good, aren't they?